Brad Waller here, coming to you from my 1967 Chevelle as I drive around again. Again, driving seems to be the best time for me to find time for this. However, I have to say that I messed up. Yesterday's video that I recorded, I posted it for today and not for yesterday. So our 90-day video challenge, where I was talking about that yesterday and talking about how a couple people have dropped out, I'm going to miss seeing them, and I linked to her video in the video. I should have posted that one yesterday because guess what? I missed yesterday. Luckily, our rules allow for one makeup. So today's video will be the makeup for yesterday's video. So it's kind of odd. It'll be sort of making up for the day before that I made up that I was talking about the day after, but that's how it works. So there's my first struggle with this 90-day video. I was talking about getting videos done in advance and doing all this stuff, and I was actually not able to follow my plan. So that brings me to the subject of today's video, is planning. How do you plan? I like to use lists. As I mentioned in another video, which might be posted before this one, might be posted after this one, depending on when I choose to do stuff. Because I did record 2 videos yesterday, so I'd be ahead. Various tools that you can use for planning and scheduling. Jira was one of the things I was talking about that I use for business to help me plan and keep track. I have never used a customer contact system, any of the things like Salesforce or Zoho or the dozen others that are out there. I've never actually used one of those because generally I'm dealing with only a few customers at a time, and so I haven't had the need for being able to follow up with 40 or 50 people and having prospects and remembering people's birthdays and all the things that those management systems do. So I usually use a notebook. I used to use the really fancy, nice bound notebooks, but they were like, oh, car's not gonna go, we go. They're like $18 each, and they're, other than being out of archival paper, they're not really anything special. So I started using the composition books, the kinds of things that you buy for school or buy for your kids for school. Get the college ruled ones, wait for them to be on sale, and I can usually pick them up for 50 cents each. I spend a few dollars and I buy a couple of years worth. And so I use that for taking notes and for maintaining schedules and remembering things. So when I have a meeting with a client, a phone call with a client, I go to a school board meeting, I go to a PTA event, I've got a different notebook for each. I've got one for school board, one for work, one for PTA, and I keep my notes. I write down the date, I write down the subject. It could be, the subject could be school board meeting, the subject could be client call with whatever, and I make sure I know who is there. Generally, it's important to know. It's like, okay, on that call, it was Pete, Brad, Ed, and Joe. They were all on the call. So we now know who was there and who heard what. If there's a question of, well, I didn't know about it, it's like, well, you were on the call, because I can go back and say, on February 3rd, we had that call and we talked about X, Y, Z. Yeah, I've got a pretty good memory. People tell me I've got one of the best memories they know. But having those notes really can make a difference and really can help fix that memory, jog the little things that it's like, okay, yes, I remember the conversation and I remember certain pieces of it. Some things I remember perfectly and other pieces it's like, that part's a little hazy, a little bit hazy. So when I have my notes, it becomes near perfect because between my notes and then my memory, I'm pretty good at remembering what happened, who was discussing what the order was, everything else that you need to know to be well informed and know what's going on. So I tried using my iPad. When the iPads first came out, I thought, great, this iPad is going to replace my notebook. I'm going to have a to-do list in there, and I'm going to have my notes, and I'm going to do everything. iPads aren't as convenient for taking notes. I still can't type as fast and make the notations, because sometimes I want to go back up, or I want to circle something, or I want to draw something, and just those little extra things, the little notation or changes or edits, blow the whole train, and I miss something in the iPad taking notes. So in general, I found that pen and paper still works best for me. If the iPad or some electronic device works for you, great, do it, use it. But take notes, keep organized, and it really makes a difference. And I've actually had it work well for me, where I go back years, and at this point, literally, I can go back decades. So if I get called as a consultant on a legal case, I can go back to something that happened back in the 90s and say, yes, here's a discussion we had on this subject in 1996 where we were going over that, and that happens to be a year before your client was discussing this in their patent documents, things like that. So good notes helps you keep organized. I'm not even sure if that fits with how I got started on this today, but that's what happens with me sometimes. I just get a little distracted and go off on a tangent. With that, Brad Waller signing off. Bye.